Good evening, folks. This is Bill Mitchell with Your Voice America. Thank you so much for tuning into my live stream tonight. We're going to be doing these Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This is pre-taped. Why do we do that? Well, it's just easier to do it pre-taped, and also is better when we have guests, because guests don't typically like to be live. It's kind of risky. Nobody likes to be in the middle of a comment and have the internet go out and all of a sudden they're like, frozen looking funny. So we like to pre-tape. Also, it means that if I am around when the show streams live at 9 p.m., I can actually be in the chat room and talking with you as I'm talking. It's kind of weird because when people first see me doing that, they're like, wait a minute, you're talking. How are you typing at the same time? Well, I'm very talented. No, it's because this is a pre-taped segment. Well, I tell you what, exciting times. Here we are just a month and 2 days away from the election. Can you believe that? It just seems like forever ago, this whole process started, and here we are coming down the home stretch. And there have been so many twists and turns. We had Joe Biden looking more and more ridiculous as the days went by and sort of wandering off by himself, trailing off while he was speaking. And then, of course, there was a disastrous debate where I think they forgot to give him his uppers because he was completely and totally out of it. As a matter of fact, I think that was an intentional coup on his people's parts. They may have told him they were giving him his normal cocktail to be sharp out there, and they gave him placebos because he was completely out of it, and Donald Trump dominated, and that gave them an excuse to put Kamala Harris in there. Kamala Harris never got a single vote in the primaries, and they didn't hold a primary once, or an open election, once Joe Biden was stepping aside. Why did they do that? Well, Kamala Harris is far too liberal to ever win even a Democrat primary. That's why she was one of the first people to drop out back in 2020. She dropped out months before the first, contest in 2020 because she's just too far left. And this is a way for the Democrat Party and George Soros and all that foreign money that's coming in to the Democrat Party to push America further left than we ever would have gone before. To put a communist, a Marxist in charge of our country, and by installing them as the nominee, because they never could have become the nominee the normal way, because America is still a center-right country. But here we are. And we have the polls saying that this is a very tight race. Well, at this point in 2016, Hillary Clinton, I believe in some polls, was like 16 points ahead of Donald Trump. The fact that this is a tight race, and we know these pollsters, they're paid for by the media. They want to create a premise for the media to talk about, that we know they're holding the thumb down on the scale for Kamala. We know that a lot of these polls, YouGov and then Ipsos and these are all what they call internet panels. What's an internet panel? Well, this is not a poll where they randomly call you on the telephone. This is an opt-in sort of thing where you basically sign up to be a part of their polling sample. And that's what they use. And why do they do that? Well, because it's much cheaper. They can get a huge sample. You see like Morning Consult come out there with a sample of 7,000 likely voters. Whoever heard of a poll with 7,000 likely voters? That's because it's an internet panel. It's a fake poll. It's not scientifically random. There's all kind of selection biases, all kind of age bias, technology bias. And these polls always lean many points to the left because of the nature of how they're constructed. And so we've got these polls that are, really holding their thumb down on the scale for Kamala now. But what we're going to find is that as the election draws close, we're going to have what always happens every time is the polls are going to tighten right at the end. Is that because Donald Trump is suddenly surging at the end? No, he's always been ahead, but they don't want to miss by 5 or 6 points at the final contest because nobody's going to evaluate them for a poll they did now. 2 or 3 years from now, they're going to evaluate them based on their last poll. So they all want to clue together and get close to what the actual result is going to be. So Donald Trump, if things are kind of tied and very close right now, or Donald Trump's slightly ahead, he's going to build a much bigger lead going into the close because they want to stop, overloading on the sample for Kamala and for the Democrats. We had the debate that took place between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. And that was really a remarkable moment. And I'll tell you why. I think it's going to make a big difference in this race because one of the things that Donald Trump has got is he's a very strong personality. He's very right-brained. He's a visionary, but he's not a dollars and cents, nuts and bolts guy. He's the guy that has the vision for the building, maybe sketches out what the building will look like, talks about what the look and the feel should be, but he's not the architect. He's not laying out the electrical patterns. He's not laying out the plumbing. He's not installing, the marble on the floors. That's not what he does. He's a visionary. He's a CEO. He stands on the hilltop and he points off in a direction. He goes, go that way. He's very, very good at that. That's where he is a savant. He's very strong. But the nuts and bolts sort of stuff, the sort of left brain stuff, all the statistics and everything like that, you need to be a great debater. This is not his strong suit. It's not a strong suit. It's like, having a Hall of Fame baseball player and asking them to play a violin concerto. Well, they may be a great baseball player, but they're not great at the violin. And this is Trump's problem in debates. It's just not his thing. His thing is leading from the hilltop, having the big ideas, being a big motivational speaker, being a big brand guy, being in favor of the American brand. That's what he's good at. But then you got J.D. Vance, who is a very left-brain intellectual guy, very sharp, excellent memory, very calm, cool, and collected. Not an emotional person. Doesn't come across as emotional, but he's very warm, very positive, very caring. And he came across in that debate as really being the kind of guy that you want this guy to be the captain of the ship. I think it was Megyn Kelly saying the captain of the ship, steering the ship during the storm. This is the guy you can count on when the chips are down. When Iran attacks Israel or China attacks Taiwan or Russia tries to go after NATO or whatever crazy thing might be coming down the pike. This is the kind of guy you want as part of the team that's in there in the Situation Room. And I think this gave a lot of comfort to people who don't like Kamala. They may be Democrats. They may have been Democrats all their lives, but they're more JFK Democrats. They're not these far left socialist, Marxist, crazy Democrats. They're more moderates. And I think a lot of them don't like Kamala, don't like the way America is, but they felt uncomfortable voting for Donald Trump because they've got peer pressure there. They don't see Donald Trump as an intellectual, okay? They don't see him as somebody who's a steady, even guy. And, they don't like the mean tweets and so on and so forth. His brand is too gruff for them. But when they see J.D. Vance up there, and J.D. Vance is smooth, collected, even, very pleasant, not confrontational, except for, he was confrontational when he had to shoot those guys down on fact-checking him, and that was good. That was a sign of strength. But, no name calling or anything like that. They look at him and they say, wait a minute, I like this guy. And if this guy's on the Trump team, then, I wasn't sure about voting. I don't want to vote for Kamala, but I would vote for her if my only other choice is Trump. But if I know that J.D. Vance is on the Trump team, then what, I can do that. I can do that. So he gave them a rationale. The people that are the moderates, the moderate Democrats, so on and so forth, the independents that weren't sold on Trump because of a style issue, because they love the Trump agenda, but it's a style issue they couldn't wrap their hands. They could say, wait a minute, I can vote for him because I like J.D. Vance's style. I can go there. So this was a tremendous win. Now, Walz's job in that debate was to win over men, because this is an area that Kamala Harris is in deep, deep trouble with. He did not do that. He did not do that. And I'm not saying he was a terrible debater. He was prepared. He had some clever remarks and so on and so forth. But he really got tripped up when they were talking about things that wasn't, part of the script. When they did it about the Tiananmen Square situation, they got caught in a lie on that. And he's like, well, I'm kind of a goofball, And his whole message was, I wasn't lying. I'm just an idiot. This is not what you want to come across with. And he had, as J.D. Vance said, he had a very difficult job of whack-a-mole to stand there and promote Kamala Harris's position, saying they are something new, at the same time not impugning the job that she's done for the last 4 years. He said, I feel sympathy for you. You're in an impossible situation. So I think that J.D. Vance was very good at winning over moderates. I think he's very good at winning over independents. I think he's very good at winning over sort of the Reagan Democrat type of Democrats that could support Trump and the Trump-Vance ticket. I think he got rid of the media, presentation of him as some, rough hillbilly, women hater, barefoot and pregnant. He didn't come across as that at all. And also he looked very kind. A lot of women that I was talking to online were talking about, they thought he was, very good looking, beautiful blue eyes, all these sort of things. He sort of looked like, like Elvis eyes and this sort of thing. And you might say, oh, that's silly. Who cares? It matters, folks. Stuff like that matters. Stuff like that matters. And it matters to women. And we need to reach out and we need to get women on our team to win this. I tell you what, if women even went 50-50 for Trump, we would win this thing going away because Trump is so far ahead with men. If we can bring women across, and I think that J.D. Vance helps with that. Okay, now let's talk about something else that is controversial that's just come out. Melania is putting out like a memoir or whatever, October something. And in it, she talks about how she's pro-choice. Everybody's like, oh my God, how can she say something like that? Here we are right before the election. She's coming out as pro-choice. But folks, you need to think strategically. Remember, you need to win if you're going to rule. You can be right all day long, but if you don't win at the ballot box, you're living life by their rules. You got to win. And so Melania has these feelings that she's pro-choice, and she's not like pro-choice, up to the point of, birth and so on and so forth. She was talking about a situation of rape, incest, where the mother's life is at risk and so on and so forth. But the great thing about this is that one of the biggest foils that Kamala and the Democrats have been trying to use against Trump is they keep saying, oh, he's going to pass a federal abortion ban. And Trump has said, no, I'm not going to do that. It's a states' rights issue. But they keep saying it anyway. It's like the Charlottesville thing. The very fine people thing. They get stuck on something they just can't get off it. Okay. So the beauty of Melania coming out and saying this in her book is that people will look at that and say, well, listen, if Melania is pro-choice, there's no way, unless Trump wants to be sleeping on the sofa, that he's going to come out for a federal abortion ban. So it really takes the teeth out of that shark for them. It's absolutely brilliant on their parts. Now, will this upset some conservative folks, a pro-life crowd and so on and so forth? I suppose. But are they going to stay home and not vote for Trump and let Kamala win because Melania is pro-choice? No, they aren't. But are some moderate women that are also pro-choice? A lot of people in this country are pro-choice to a certain extent, within limits. And, that may have been afraid of Trump because of what the media says about Trump. They may be afraid that he would, ban all abortions completely, and they didn't want that. So this takes that away from the Democrats and gives Trump an opportunity, an opening. So what I would say to my conservative friends that want to go on social media, like, I can't believe it. What is Trump trying to do? He knew she was going to do this. Is he trying to lose the race? Folks, he's not going to lose conservatives because Melania is pro-choice. And if you're willing to let this country be taken over for the next 4 years by Kamala Harris, okay, and Tim Walz, and turned basically into a Marxist socialist country because Melania was pro-choice, you need to sit down and think hard about that. You need to get a big picture and get off your one issue. Because we're talking about the future of America here. And I guarantee you, if if Kamala gets in there and she gets a majority in the Senate so that they can get rid of the filibuster on day one, pack the Supreme Court and, make abortion, laws national, because, even though the Supreme Court said it's a states' rights issue, they basically said, yeah, but Congress can still decide. And so if she does that, she's going to have abortion up until birth in all 50 states. They're going to be forcing any doctors that take Medicare or Medicaid to perform abortions, even if it's against their conscience. It's going to be a horrible mess. So you have a choice between Donald Trump, who's going to let it be states' rights and not a federal, and he's basically a pro-life guy, federal law, states' rights, or, and Melania, his wife, who's pro-choice, or Kamala Harris, who will have abortion up until after birth, like Tim Walz has in Minnesota. You need to think strategically, folks. You need to win. We need to win this race. And I'm telling you what, the Democrats love it when conservatives become single issue voters on social issues. You know why? Because when we do that, we always lose. We never, ever win. We win when we run on the economy. We win when we run on safe borders, secure borders. We win when we run on crime. We win when we run on world peace. But we don't win when we run on social issues. We may as well not even have the election if we're going to make this election about social issues. So the thing is, win, and you can have your voice on social issues. If you want the strictest abortion rules and laws in the country, then elect people in your state legislature that feel like you do and get it pushed through there, because under Trump, it is going to remain a states' rights issue. So for those who think this is some sort of disaster, it's not. It's actually a masterstroke. This is why the Trump campaign has let this happen. You think the Trump campaign doesn't know exactly what's in that book? This is why they're letting this happen, because it takes the teeth out of the shark for Kamala attacking him, saying, oh, there's going to be a federal abortion ban. No, there won't, because Kamala is pro-choice and Trump, no way in the world is he going to sleep on the sofa for the next, 4 years, because he's trying to pass a federal abortion ban. Okay, let's talk about Hurricane Helene. And, Joe Biden said the other day, he says, well, if you didn't believe in global warming before, well, Hurricane Helene, proves it. It's like, it's just a hurricane, Category 4 hurricane. And, the earth is warming, because if you look at the ice core samples for the last 10,000 years, Earth's temperature goes up and down like a sine wave, like this. And we are actually right now coming out of what's called a mini ice age. For about 400 years, it was exceptionally cold. We were down at a trough of the sine wave. 3 times in the last 10,000 years, it has been dramatically warmer than it is now. There was a Roman period and a medieval period, I think some other period. But these were all periods that were actually exceptionally good for mankind. Warmth is good for mankind. When these glaciers retreat, you know what they're finding? When these glaciers retreat, they're finding farm equipment and that sort of thing under the ice. Why? Because this was all, farmable land before those glaciers came on. And, maybe if, the glaciers melt a lot, maybe it'll be bad for some, limousine liberals in their beach houses or whatever. But in general, this is just the way the earth goes. And so people say, oh, well, the earth's temperature is up 1.2 degrees in the last 100 years. And it's like, yeah, I know, because we are in a warming period. And they show that hockey stick, right? It's like a hockey stick. But the hockey stick only looks like a hockey stick if you're up super close to the graph. If you step back, it's like a tiny little, it's not a hockey stick. It's just, folks, it's all games they're playing with you. And here's the thing with global warming, is they always blame it on CO2. Now, why would you blame global warming on CO2? What scientific evidence is that? Well, it's a post hoc argument. What's that? Post hoc argument is basically after this, therefore, because of this. So CO2 levels have been increasing over the last 100 or so years. And the earth has been warming. Oh, they said, well, CO2 has been going up. And therefore, that's causing global warming because, CO2 is a gas that would cause the earth to warm. But what you don't understand is there are only 400 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. There's almost none of it. So when you increase CO2 concentrations by, say, 25%, you go from almost none all the way up to almost none. CO2 is not going to increase global warming at these levels. This is not Venus. And what the historical record shows is that CO2 does not precede warming, it follows warming. Why would that be? Well, because most of the CO2 on Earth is trapped in the oceans. And when the Earth warms, what happens? the CO2 gets released from the oceans, and you get more CO2 in the atmosphere. Then what lives on CO2? The forests, the plants. This feeds the forests and the plants. You get thicker and heavier vegetation, so on and so forth. You get, you ever been driving along on a hot day and you drive into the forest, maybe with the top down, and the temperature goes down 15, 20 degrees? It's cooler in the forest, so that helps to cool the earth. So really, it is a way of Earth regulating itself. It gets warm, CO2 gets released, increases vegetation and increases forestation. Earth's temperature comes back down. And, we go on a wave like this, and typically, the main causes for climate change over the eons have been major volcanoes and sun activity. Maybe the Earth shifting on its axis. We have, I think it was 60,000 years ago. I don't know, I want to be quoted on that, but, Manhattan, I believe, was under a mile of ice. Well, how did that ice melt? It wasn't because of air conditioners and SUVs that cavemen were driving. It's because this is the cyclical nature of Earth. And so right now we're coming out of a cold period. That's why temperatures are rising. The hockey stick is completely a lie because they've zoomed into a tiny part of the graph. If you zoom back, that hockey stick is nothing. It's just like, okay. And they're using CO2 as the boogeyman. Why? Think about it. These are Marxists. They wanted to redistribute wealth, right? They want equity, as Kamala said. So how would CO2 do that? Well, who creates CO2? The industrialized nations. The industrialized nations create CO2. And so if you impose all these rules on the industrialization so they will reduce CO2, you get to redistribute wealth from the industrialized nations to all the other nations. You create equity. You create a Marxist utopia. And the Democrats are the ones who are in charge making all those rules. They are the ones that get power. If you look at COVID, that gave Democrat power. They loved COVID. Try to criticize COVID, boom, like I did, you get kicked off of Twitter, right? They love COVID. They love global warming. Try to criticize that, you get in trouble for criticizing that. But the whole idea that CO2, a trace gas, is giving the Earth a fever. The Earth is just warming naturally. We're in a warming cycle. And is that going to create some, bigger hurricanes and so on and so forth? Yeah. But, this is just, it's a dangerous planet that we live on. So was Helene like this once in a million years superstorm that it went up to, Asheville, North Carolina, 350 miles from landfall and created this massive flooding? It's like, it's climate change. It's global warming. These hurricanes are, they're wiping out towns 350 miles from the coast. No, you got to research this stuff. What happened in Asheville and all those Appalachian towns is that they had been through about a week of storms that had nothing to do with Hurricane Helene at all. And those storms in Asheville had dumped 10 inches of rain on Asheville. What does that mean? That means the ground was saturated and the rivers and the lakes and so on and so forth were cresting already. So when Helene showed up, there was nowhere for that water to go but up. So it was instant, immediate, massive flooding. So that's why you had the huge flooding. If you hadn't had 10 inches of rain the week before Helene showed up, you probably would have had some flooding, but you wouldn't have had the disaster we had now because the ground was already saturated. So all that rain from Helene just went straight up. There was nowhere for it to go into the ground. And yet the Democrats say, it's the greatest. It's some sort of psychotic monster storm. It was a Category 4 storm, big storm, powerful storm. But this is why, we've had Category 4 storms hit before, and you didn't have massive flooding in North Carolina or Appalachia. But that's because there had big rainstorms for the week before Helene even showed up that had nothing to do with Helene. So this is an opportunity for Kamala to really lead there. The people in Appalachia are suffering. I was watching a video. Some guy said, we still got like 1,000 people missing. They've got 200 people dead, 1,000 people missing up here. A real chance to lead, get in there with FEMA and so on and so forth. But what are they doing? They're putting out regulations saying that, listen, you guys with planes and helicopters and stuff like that, you guys are grounded. We don't, you guys flying drones to find people. No. We're in charge. You don't get in our way. We don't want you out there raising money and helping people out. We don't want you actually rescuing people. We're going to do all that. And then Kamala come out and says, Yeah, we're going to have $750 for each person up there. It's like, what? $750? What are you talking about? They give these EBT cards to illegal aliens for almost $2,000 for a family of four. They're giving $750 to people in Appalachia. Now, why are they doing this? This is literally becoming Kamala's Katrina. Why are they doing this? Well, because, who lives in Appalachia? Trump voters. We got an election a month. These people's lives are totally disrupted. They don't want these people to vote. That's why they're not in a hurry to get the areas fixed up, because they don't want them to vote. That's all these guys care about. Illegal immigration, all these things, the FEMA, all this stuff. They just don't want people to vote. And yet the optics of it are absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. This is Kamala's one chance to really lead. And she is not. She's dialing it in. And when she makes a statement about this, a few statements she's made, she's reading off the script and she sounds completely disconnected. She has no emotion, no compassion. She's like, yeah, well, this is my job, sir. I'm going to read this. Yeah, we got $750 for people. Well, we're doing a really great job. They're not. And then Mayorkas comes out and says, oh, this is going to be a rough hurricane season because, FEMA's basically just out of money. Meanwhile, we just wrote a check to Ukraine for $8 billion. It's insane. So why are we still giving so much money to Ukraine when we can't even take care of our own people? Because Ukraine is giving money back to the DNC through Act Blue and through these ghost donors. Do you think that Kamala Harris really raised, $350 million in 1 month from her broke base, her broke Democrat base? Yeah, there are some wealthy Democrats, but most of them are pretty broke. That's why they're Democrats. And, inner city Democrats, do you think they really gave all this money? No, you've got these ghost donors, some little old lady in Seattle that gave to Act Blue once, gave $20 to Act Blue once, and now she finds out on the FEC report that she's given, 30,000 donations for $500,000 under her name. It's like, where's that? That is foreign money being laundered back through Act Blue. And it's, it's obvious. I'm not making stuff up here. And you have state AGs investigating this. It's obvious what's going on. It's obvious what's going on. And so this is really a bad moment for Kamala and for Biden, but they don't seem to care. It's somewhat of a mystery. And then we've got the longshoreman strike. Now talk about reminding everybody of the worst parts of the early Biden presidency. We had the supply chain crisis, what we'll have now if this longshoreman strike continues. And we're going to have shortages in the stores. You're going to have inflation. And it hasn't struck yet, but you've already got big lines, people loading up their carts with toilet paper and all that stuff. It's already getting going, and this is going to hurt them as well. But the problem they have is that Joe Biden could enact Taft-Hartley. What is that? Well, that's where you have, if you have a union that is necessary for, the United States security, that a president can go in and say, listen, we have an 80-day cooling off period where you need to back off this strike. We work things out and so on and so forth. You can't strike. And it's actually a law. Now, the reason why Joe Biden doesn't want to do that is because it will piss off the union bosses and piss off the union members for undermining them. But on the other hand, he's got the electorate that's being crushed already by inflation, and it's going to reignite inflation. It's going to reignite, every shortages and everything else. And remind everybody of the worst days of COVID. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place here. Now, some people propose online, and I thought it might be happening, that this is all a bit of kabuki theater. And what they're really doing is they're setting this up so, Kamala will come in at the last minute, and she sat down with the union leaders and she put her fist on the table and she said, we've got to come up with a solution for this. And they did the solution and the strike ended and yay, Kamala, right? So that could be happening too. It's all just a setup to make Kamala look as, and the media will just go nuts. Oh my God, the greatest leader in the history of Earth. People were suffering and Kamala stepped in, and what a negotiator. So don't be surprised if you see that. But we talk about what's going to be the October surprise. This dock workers, port workers, longshoreman strike could be the October surprise. So I think we're looking great. Scott is doing a great job in Pennsylvania. We're just registering people all over the place. I think that if we win Pennsylvania, we're gonna win. We're looking strong in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Arizona. You win those states, you're gonna win it. Now, can we beat the cheat? Well, it's gonna be harder for them to cheat this time because you don't have COVID as cover for that. So far, anyway, from what we've heard, then the anecdotal evidence we've heard from the field is that Republicans seem to be doing very well in beating Democrats on early voting. That's really unusual. And as far as requesting absentee ballots, that's very unusual. These are amazing times, folks. Amazing, amazing times. Think about the fact that you are alive right now in literally the greatest moment in human history. Did you know that 99% of all the scientists who have ever lived are alive today? All this technology that we just take for granted, the fact that you're watching this here right now, streaming over the internet, these electrons flying through the air on your Wi-Fi. Do you realize that people even 100 years ago could not have even conceived of this? It would have seemed like magic to them. And yet to us, it's just normal. As much war and disease and earthquakes and so on and so forth, as we have in the world now, the life expectancy worldwide is the highest it's ever been. Poverty is the lowest it's ever been in the world. We are living in truly amazing times. And here we are, America, on the brink. Folks, America is a shining light on the hill. If America falls, all of Europe will fall. The East will fall. It will all fall apart. We are the only thing. We are the boy with our finger in the dike holding the floodwaters back. So this is a momentous time. And I guarantee you, if America has lost their mind and we elect Kamala Harris on November 5th, and God forbid give her a majority in the Senate or the House, we've crossed the Rubicon. It's too far. We've gone too far. This is our moment to turn back. I think that Donald Trump will be a much better president, even though he's a very good president the first time, be a much better president this time. He knows who to trust, who not to trust. He's not going to hire a bunch of people out of the corporate world to be his cabinet ministers. I think that those people he was vetting for VP are all going to be part of his cabinet. His VP is outstanding. A lot of us were like, I don't know about this guy, but he's grown into the role. He's found his voice. He's, a real superstar. And I think that he's going to have, a cooperate. He's not going to have Paul Ryan. He's not going to have Mitch McConnell opposing him at every turn. And if we have a landslide election where he has coattails where he wins the House, we win the House and the Senate, oh my God, we could have an amazing, amazing first 2 years in this administration. Really turn this thing around. And this is why the Democrats are afraid. This is why the intelligence community is afraid. Because they know they've been up to some shenanigans, and they know that if they no longer control the halls of power and they no longer control the DOJ, some stuff is going to get exposed. And there needs to be justice, folks. I'm not saying we need to do lawfare. Lawfare is cheap and it's unfair and it's not real. But if there are real crimes committed, we need to go after that. There needs to be a price to pay because the Democrats will never back off on their lawfare until a couple of them are in orange jumpsuits sitting in prison somewhere. Then they're like, we need to stop doing this. But they've never been made to pay the price. Never been made to pay the price for that. Well, folks, I appreciate you tuning into my live stream. Lots of great things happening. We could talk all night, but I'll end it here. I'll be here every night, Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. You might notice in my feed, one of the things we're doing is we're creating these news memes. What I do, to get ready for the show, I have to study the news all day. And so I thought to myself, wait a minute, why not create these little memes? And if I have the technology, it takes me like a minute to make one of those because I'm a coder, somewhat of a developer. And so I know how to write all the code to make those things, create those things very quickly and, consolidate a 3-page news article down to a paragraph. And, what I do is when I create the meme, I have a little paragraph on top. And then typically I don't put the link to the original article. I'll give them a hat tip. There's Breitbart, Gateway, whatever. But I don't put the link to the article because X doesn't like that. They don't want us linking to people outside. And in most cases, you can get a general feel for the news story just by reading the meme and reading what I said above that. But if it's a detailed article that really goes into, lots of bullet points, I will go ahead and put the link on there, even if it means X is going to deboost it, because you just need that resource. But at least I tell you where it was. If you want to go find the story on your own, you can. But I don't want X just hiding the post because it's got those links in there. But sometimes, every once in a while, a couple times a day, I'll probably put the link in there just because you need to be able to go and research that. And the great things about those memes is that you can bookmark those according to various topics, and inflation or the election or election integrity or immigration or whatever. And then there's a very visual. And then when you're on X and you're arguing a point with somebody, or you want to make a post, let's say you want to make a post about inflation, say, wait a minute, I remember, Bill Mitchell had a meme about that. I'm going to go ahead and make my post, and then I'm going to copy the link to his post and drop it in there beneath mine, so it shows up. Because what happened if you take copy my post and link, it'll show up, the full post will show up beneath yours, and that way you've given a reference for what you're saying. So it's nice. You can also take those, copy and paste those, or save the memes themselves, the images, and you can drop them onto Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever you want. It's very easy. So it's very easy to spread the message. That's why I created those, and I think they're very helpful for everybody. Everybody seems to like them. So anyway, that's it. If you want to follow me, I'm on Mitchell VII at Twitter. Please, retweet me or repost me or whatever. It'll always be retweet to me, but please, retweet, subscribe to the show. If you're having a hard time, if you're not seeing many of my posts, go ahead and put me on a list. That's what I do with all my favorite people, put them on a list. And that way you're definitely going to see what I say. Follow me, subscribe, helps to pay the, keep the lights on, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's it. We're going to do these Monday through Friday, and it's going to be a news show like this. And then on, maybe on like a Sunday night, we'll have an Ask Me Anything where I have a guest on, or just myself. And you can go in the chat room, and it'll be actually live, not pre-taped, live. And you can ask me questions, and I'll respond to you live. That's good for Sunday night. Yeah. So, and eventually we might make that a subscriber only thing, but we don't have enough subscribers yet to make that a good idea. So once we get a few thousand subscribers, we'll probably make that a subscriber only thing to motivate people to subscribe to the show. So anyway, that's it, guys. Absolutely love you guys. I got faith in you. I believe in you. I believe in this country. I'm excited about our chances going forward, and we're going to save America. We'll